All right. Hi, everyone. Thanks for taking the time out of your morning, afternoon, or evening to hear about production. I'm just going to jump right into it, mainly because I think many of you have attended many sessions today on this great event. So without further ado, I will share my screen. Um, okay. So today I'll talk about production and what it is and how it relates to project management. But more importantly, I wanted to focus on what I feel is the lost art of soft skills. And we'll definitely get into what I mean by that as the presentation goes on. So I'll start off with an introduction of myself, just a quick slide about me. I've been in project management and production for about 13 plus years now, a decade of which I spent in the gaming industry. I've always wanted to work in games since I was 5 years old, and it's been a lifelong journey to be where I am today. I'm currently the lead producer at Revolving Games, which is a Web3 gaming studio. Prior to this, I spent some time with a Chinese mobile company called Elix, started a small studio in the Bay Area as part of their expansion overseas. Before that, I was with Cold Iron Studios working on Aliens Fireteam Elite. And then before that, I was a producer at Ubisoft, where I spent most of my gaming career working on the Rainbow Six franchise, as well as the South Park RPG sequel, The Fractured Butthole. And I like saying that because there's a hidden connotation there. I'll let you stew on that for a minute. So what the hell is a producer anyways? A producer, in my opinion, is the person that is the glue that holds people together. And I highlight people because there's a Chinese character pronounced yan that it symbolizes people. And the way I see it and the way my wife's grandmother has told me is people don't exist unless they lean in on each other, right? This character can't be completed without both sides leaning in on each other. And for me, like this is a word I take seriously as I carry on through production. And it's really about making sure that you put people first. And if there's any takeaway from this presentation, it's really about putting your team ahead of you. So what is a producer responsible for? At a high level, there's multiple things, right? Developing and maintaining the schedule, working with cross-functional teams to create components or features of a game, risk mitigation, prioritizing and maintaining a product backlog. If there's any project managers in the room, you'll notice that this is pretty much what you do as well. Personally, being on both sides of the coin, I see no difference between what a project manager does and a producer does. In fact, like production and producers, they got their name from the entertainment industry, most notably, movies and music, where they're considered rock stars in the industry, right? I almost want to take the stigma out of that because that feels like unapproachable, uh, and just say that if you've done project management, if you like working with people, then production is for you. So what does a producer actually do, right? So let's kind of go through a quick scenario that everyone kind of understands, right? Your friend wants the most incredible pizza birthday party, right? We can all relate to this at some point in our lives. So what does your friend want, right? So they want a party that's unforgettable, best pizza ever. Best pizza ever is probably in New York City. Balloons, obviously booze, and friends, right? They want something crazy. They want something unforgettable. But once your friend thinks about it, she doesn't really know where to start planning. This is actually a lot of stuff, right? A lot of things that this person didn't take into account. So you would then, as a producer, kind of gather requirements. When is this happening? What time? Where in New York City? It's huge. What kind of booze do you want? What size of balloons? What colors? What kind of pizza? How many? And who's going? Right? You don't want the people that you don't want there, especially on your birthday party. So this is exactly where a producer comes in, right? Imagine yourself. You're the producer. Nice little Mario over here. And there's a vision, right? Imagine like your creative director, right? Your friend is your creative director right now. They're waxing poetically about this wonderful pizza party, balloons, pizza, friends, alcohol. And then there's this other notion of like, what's your friend's budget? When is this happening? And like, how big is this project? This is exactly what the producer has to kind of maintain both sides of this coin, right? They need to protect this vision of what the game is, at the same time, realistically telling their friend, people don't have money to fly to New York because they live all over the world, or not everyone can make it on your birthday because we have lives, and no, we can't actually have balloons because the pizza place doesn't allow it or whatever, right? You kind of have to like kill their dreams a little bit once in a while. So what skills does an effective producer actually need, right? So they're usually divvied up into two sections, right? And I'm sure many of you here have heard of the hard skills versus the soft skills. So what is the difference between hard skills and soft skills? Well, for hard skills, they're teachable, right? They're things that are easily quantifiable. So examples of this would be like proficient in a foreign language, typing speed, machine operations, computer programming, what have you. And then on the other side is soft skills. These are known as like people skills or interpersonal skills. Examples of this, communication, flexibility, leadership, empathy, teamwork, time management. It's generally easier to train a new employee in a hard skill, like teaching someone how to use Excel, for instance, than it is to train an employee in a soft skill, such as like patience. You can't just say like, hey, take it easy. Someone might be hot-headed or like they don't understand how to like relax. So we'll talk about the hard skills first and kind of get through these, as most people would sort of already know most of these, I imagine. And if not, this is a nice little refresher for you. So some of the hard skills that a producer needs is obviously everything in the project management, handbook, right? Understanding what, a waterfall methodology is. So in this case, waterfall creates like critical paths, as you see on the right-hand side of the screen, where the project can't move forward until a blocking issue is resolved. This is obviously best used for pretty much standard, like predictable things like art, animation, audio. So in this example, a character needs to go through like concepting, then modeling, then rigging, and then animation, and sometimes VFX at the end, and then audio and all that stuff. Like very predictable chunks where you can kind of ask an artist or an animator at each step of the way, hey, how long does it take to do a T-pose? How long does it take to do a walk-run cycle for animations, etc.? So this works best in game production when there are clear dependencies that have hard deliverables with a predictable timeline. Obviously, if you work in games, this is 9 times out of 10 the methodology you will not use, right? This does work really well for art, in my experience, and animation, and of course audio, but in general, it's not the first choice you should go for. The second thing is always Agile, Scrum, whatever you want to call it. There's so many names and there's so many hybridizations of this at this point. So this is the iterative approach that most companies are using these days, right? Regular feedback intervals. There's quick iterations. You remove critical paths. You kind of allow people to interact with the game while you're developing it as early as possible, as much as you need. And these iterations obviously allow the team to be more flexible and move to another area of the project if there is a blocking issue. So if the creative director hasn't thought of the setting yet, maybe you don't start your concept artist on like a farmland. You kind of like let that sit for a while and have them move on to maybe characters, something that's a little bit more defined. So this definitely gives you the opportunity to like build, deliver, learn, and adjust, and perfect for game development in general. Many games do take anywhere from 3 to 5 years. Some games like Final Fantasy 15 took 10 years. So it really depends on the type of game you're working on and what methodology works best for you. The third thing is risk mitigation. So producers have to have, just like project managers do, a plan B and even a C in case things go wrong. Having a mitigation plan in place allows the team to pivot without having to completely stop development, right? And it increases team morale because it helps the team trust the producer is always got their back, right? Like if they mess up, it's okay because the producer is like, oh, you know what? I anticipated for something like this happening, not for human error per se, but Maybe we're not working on a Call of Duty anymore. Maybe we need to work on something else. And a good mitigation plan can really help save a project from failing. Backlog grooming is probably the most boring thing you can do as a producer, but it's very essential for the producer's job. It ensures that the current and upcoming tasks are what the team needs to work on. And for me, I tend to work with my team and grooming the backlog every 2 weeks, just to make sure like we could plan ahead, and it makes it easier to communicate the status of things when everything's kind of prioritized and stack ranked accordingly. Scheduling, whenever you use like Excel, Microsoft Project, or another tool, scheduling is definitely, from my experience, the best way to communicate what the project status is. The schedule is something the whole team needs to be aware of, because they need to understand where they fit in this role, right? Sadly, audio is usually at the end of game production, and they get, excuse my language, but the shit end of the stick, because they have to wait till everything's done. Like if you imagine like a VFX firing like a poof of smoke, people expect like a sound to come out. But if that poof of smoke is not timed correctly to an animation, is not properly placed, and maybe doesn't exist yet, like how can an audio engineer look at something on a screen and just imagine what it will sound like? They kind of need that impulse from something visual. A project without an accurate schedule is like a captain without a map, right? You get lost, your team will be demoralized. They'll, do mutiny, kind of kick you off the ship. And you don't want that, obviously. Schedule should always be kept up to date, to make sure everyone knows where the project is in the development cycle. You don't know how many times I've been in a situation where, I'm working with someone who needed help with their project, and it's like they haven't updated their schedule for like 3 months, right? And it's like, well, how do you even know where you're going? No wonder the team's sort of like upset, or like things are out of whack. You might be wondering like why I would be putting meaning minutes on here as a hard skill. Honestly, being a good note taker can mean a difference between a character being bald or having hair, right? I've been there. Like you're sitting in this very creative meeting, and these creative director and art types are like waxing poetically about like, oh, this character model, he should be like high-tech cyberpunk and blah blah blah. And this whole time, no one actually talks about whether this person has hair or not. So as the notes come out and you assign this task to a concept artist or an animator or a rigging artist, you'll have a creative director look at it and say like, why doesn't he have hair? It happens more times than you think. So without clear notes, this can amount to development time being wasted, because you didn't get sign off on anything. You didn't have proper action items. You didn't know who said what. So this is a good way to really take into account what people said and what the action items are, and for people to understand why decisions were made. A lot of the times when I enter new projects, many people ask that question to design frequently, of like, why did we decide to change this? Not because they're trying to do the designer's job. It's more like making sure everyone in the line has the exact same information and is given full transparency, so that they don't feel left out, right? That's really why they ask the question why. And so get your typing fingers ready, because this is how fast you need to keep up with like 30 developers in a room yelling over each other. Artifact management, this is just creating a repository for where documents and assets are stored. Being organized and knowing where everything is can save you and your team time. It's also great for onboarding. Information is definitely your friend, but information is constant, and you're constantly going to get buried in a ton of stuff. So having an organized system and knowing where everything is placed, make sure like you're not ending up like that poor woman working. Creating a process and pipeline. So this ensures that everyone on a team understands their contribution, right? Most importantly, everyone needs to feel like they're part of the team and that their work matters. So the process, having it documented somewhere, is a great place for people to know, hey, I'm part of this chain and I matter. My work does matter. It provides clarity and transparency to everything that's happening. And it definitely, makes it so your team becomes more self-sufficient, which is every producer's dream. I mean, we're talking ourselves out of the job at that point, but like we want to get there because our whole existence is to make things easier for everyone on the team. And ultimately, a good process provides a sense of predictability for when something gets done. So moving on from all that stuff, just summarizing quickly what these hard skills are. And these are just for people, like, I think these slides are going to be shared after this, but in case people want to take screenshots or whatever, feel free. So yeah, these are just like some of the hard skills that I think are the most important ones that I've taken from my project management background that just kind of slides into production quite nicely and is literally the same job, right? So don't let anyone tell you otherwise. So really the meat of this presentation, and I have like maybe 11 slides based on this, is the soft skills, right? The reason why I think it's a lost art is because most people always rely on results, right? Most people in leadership positions are always looking at what's the ROI, what am I getting out of like hiring this or that person? How come this person's not delivering and whatnot? We kind of get fixated on timelines and deliverables when we really should focus on our team, when we really should focus on the people that are working here. And soft skills is the way to do that, mainly because it's something that we all have, right? We all know how to talk to each other. We all know that when we want something, we know how to ask. But there's a lot of nuances here, especially in the workplace, and especially when we're all working from home now, when some people have their videos off, or there is a thing about like reading the room, right? When you walk in, you can sense tension, you can sense angst, you can sense if everyone's happy, right? Just by walking into a room. These are all these intuitions that I think we're losing touch with because we're all working from home now. I can't really get a feel for people when your video is off and I'm halfway across the world and the other person somewhere else, So I wanted to emphasize on the soft skills here, and something for this room to think about, not just through production, but how you are trying to practice these on a day-to-day basis as you work with your teams. So let's get into it. First and foremost, right, communication is key. Right, you can replace a good blank producer, project manager, accountant, right? You should be able to communicate well upstream and downstream, right? Whether you're talking to an executive or you're talking to someone that's your peer, I'm very candid. I will use the same language regardless of who I talk to, because I don't want to represent myself in a way that's any different from just because I'm talking to a suit versus I'm talking to a peer. It doesn't make sense in my book, right? We're all people, we're all human beings at the end of the day, regardless of title. So this means the producer is able to guide the team well and inform leadership of anything that's happening on the project, right? So as you become a more effective communicator, and you can sort of talk to anyone on the floor, this allows you to be more transparent, right? This allows you to understand all the information that you're getting. And if you're not talking any differently to an executive than you would your peer, then the information comes freely, it flows freely. You don't have to get your words mixed up. You don't have to prepare a special presentation. You can say shit in front of people all you want. It's like, it doesn't matter. You're just like communicating the way you would normally communicate. This also means that producers need to be aware of how each individual communicates, right? And adjust their communication style to ensure direction or information is clear. Most of the industry is a bunch of introverts, right? I myself am an introvert. And so it's important to understand that introverts don't like micromanagement. Introverts want to be left alone and do things the way they want to do things. It's really important, not just for producers, but anyone in this room. When you're working with individuals and you notice their communication style is different, you really have to lean into that and have some empathy and ensure like that their voice is being heard, even if they're not talkative. Detail oriented. This is kind of goes without saying, but you need to be as detailed as you can be to ensure things are clear, right? When tasks are lacking in detail, you're going to get that bald character again. It doesn't help the developer like clearly understand what needs to be built, what needs to be fixed, and putting in that extra effort to add additional information can definitely save minutes, if not hours, of confusion. You don't know how many times I walk into a Jira backlog grooming and there's like tickets that say, make it fun or make it better. Like that doesn't help anybody. That's very passive aggressive and just sort of lazy on the part of like whoever's creating those tickets. But I'm sure people have heard feedback in that kind of way about your designs or management style or whatever. Just make it better, is great. That's good communication. Problem solving. So you don't need to know all the answers. But you do need to know what you can do to help the team get an answer, right? You can do this by, bringing all the right people in a room and talking about the problem to determine what the best solution is for your project or your game. Teamwork. So you are part of a team, right? And that team is responsible to develop something. So you need to find efficient and effective ways to work with your team and do whatever is necessary to ensure that your team is healthy, right? This can be less meetings, which everyone would love. I have a no meetings Fridays thing, for instance. Having one-on-ones and doing team activities, etc. We don't get to choose our families just like we don't get to choose the people we work with, right? And so you kind of have to make it work with the people that you have. Time management. As a producer, as a project manager, you are the master of time, right? You have the power to start a meeting, end a meeting, ask how long something is going to take, and obviously you can be flexible and rigid at times with it. Using this concept of time to aid you in making the team more efficient and effective is key. There's countless times when Ubisoft used to send me over to Paris, and nothing against French people if you're in the room, but you are notorious for being fashionably late. I will sometimes sit in a room for like a 30-minute meeting, but you would show up 20 minutes late and expect me to wrap everything up in 10 minutes. So I then, at the time, was pissed off, but in retrospect, I'm proud of myself for doing so, is I would set a rule for myself in that if the person doesn't show up in 3 minutes, I leave the room. And I leave a note on the whiteboard or a Post-it note on the table saying, if you're going to be late next time, don't waste my time because I would never waste yours. So show up next time. And it works. It's not probably the best approach, but it does garner a sense of respect, right? Of like, I don't want to waste my time. I want to make my time efficient, and I don't want to waste your time because I know your time is valuable. So why can't we get on the same page about this? And this person was never late again. VP of finance people have to be definitely self-motivated. Having a strong work ethic, there's going to be really tough times, tough decisions to make. The gaming industry is marred with this notion of crunch, right? Like working sort of the 7 days a week kind of thing. Here's free lunch to make it feel a little better for you. Trying to make things a little better. But, I've been there. My relationship suffered. You lose a sense of self. There's people sleeping under the desks. There's people who don't go home to shower. You sort of like lose yourself in your work, but not in a very good way. And so I bring that up not because you have to be self-motivated to crunch, but in a sense that like you have to make these decisions of standing up for your team, right? And saying, no, my team's not going to come in on weekends. My team's not going to work 15-hour days because you as a producer are the master of time. You set the schedule. Just as you set the schedule, you are responsible if these individuals on your team have to stay late. And so you can muster up the courage to tell your executives how long something's actually going to take instead of throwing your team under the bus and saying, it's okay, Nick can come in. He doesn't have a life, right? It's really fucked up. So let's not do that. It's important that you find what makes you passionate about this role so that you can effectively lead the team to success, right? Sadly, I've worked with a lot of producers where this is not the forefront of why they're doing this, right? They like the intrigue and the mystique of the game industry, but they don't realize that it's not all, fun and games when you come. Like, people think, oh my God, you work in video games. That must be great. I had to listen to a man talk about pants for a week, right? That's not fun, right? Because, oh, what kind of pants does this character wear? Like, who the fuck cares? Let's just make pants for this character. Um, it you you have to really love that you're working alongside a team to make a great game, uh, so that you can sit through the bullshit, right? Because there's a lot of politics. There's a lot of times when you really have to question, like, do I really want to be here? So have to kind of maintain why you're here, right? And I think that goes for any job, but I think production in general, because you know, it's a thankless job sometimes. I have to say. Um, the leadership is a big topic, but there's two quotes that I think really sums it up. The first one is by Dr. Wanda Wallace. It's bring out the best in others, even when they know more than you. The second one is leadership is not about being in charge. It's about taking care of those in your charge, by Simon Sinek. And I think this one's the most important, because most of the time people think leadership is about um, delegation and being the suit in the room who gets to take fun trips across the world and talk in front of all these people and like have the fancy dinners, and like you don't need to work because you just go home in your fancy Porsche or whatever. Those leadership people need to go away, and for the lack of a better term, just die, right? Because they are the ones that ruin culture, and they're the ones that really make it hard to want to come to work. You need someone in a leadership position that cares about you, and you have to look out for them, right? They like rely on you because you have the answers, and you also are in a position of privilege where you can talk to the CEO and say no, right? Um, you just owe it. You owe it to your team. Most importantly, right, you need to understand that the team is looking for you for guidance and support, 100%. Anyone could be a leader. You don't need the title. You've all done it before, I guarantee it. Mediation is always the fun one, right? There's times where individuals, for even you, right, you're not going to see eye to eye with a peer. As a producer, you need to figure out what's wrong, how to help these individuals work well together. It takes listening and understanding both perspectives without trying, right? It's hard to put a personal bias on things, but you have to try to listen and understand without your own personal bias. And you use this information you gather to really help these individuals find common ground. Active listening. So I normally like walking into a room and not saying a word, right? You let the people who are smarter than you talk, because they're the ones solving the problems, right? You just kind of sit there and you listen, so that you are not a fool who says, let's just get it done, or what is my ROI, right? I'm sure you've all heard it before. Absorb, right? Try to really understand what individuals are saying. Take notes, right? So you can summarize, oh, if I heard you correctly, these are the things that are important, and these are our takeaways, and Frank's going to go do this in like 5 minutes or whatever. If you missed the point, ask for clarification. And you don't really fully need to understand every little detail, just the big picture. You just need to know, generally what's happening. Dependable. The team will depend on you for guidance, for clarity, for answers, for information, for when's the food getting here, right? They need to depend on you for life's basic things sometimes. It's important that you're there for them so that they can focus on what they need to do and be present, right? Just making sure like they're okay, and find out like what the team's needs are, and make sure it's a goal for yourself to accommodate and say like, all right, I can get these done. You don't know how many times I had to like fix the bathroom, right? I know it's crazy, but like this is the role, this is the job, right? You are playing this leadership role. You just you have to figure it out. You have to make sure people have regular bowel movements and they can go to the bathroom and keep going back to work and go home at a reasonable hour. Empathy, 100% important, right? Everyone that shows up to work is both the role and the individual. This is controversial, and I know we only have 9 minutes, so I'll try to get through these things kind of quickly. So for instance, I am a lead producer at Revolving Games, but at home I'm a husband and a father, right? two separate things. I show up to work, I'm a lead producer. I'm going to tell you no, you're probably going to hate me. But at the end of the day, I can go take you out for a drink. I can take you out for dinner because there's no hard feelings. It's just business. But we need to understand there's a duality here. We are not the person at work, and we are not just the people at home, right? It's important to understand that there's a difference. And I just said that, I guess. So people may have a bad day, right? And someone in your position needs to be understanding it's not personal. And we're all human beings, and we should not be expected to just be happy all the time at work and be like, oh, I'm so happy to see you. I'm so happy that I'm working at this job where you're not paying me enough, or like you haven't given me a promotion and you're expecting me to be happy here, but you're not giving me good feedback. Or, it's just like, I'm not going to be that person, and neither should you, right? But yeah, be sensitive to this and support your team. So the most important soft skill a producer should have, in my opinion, right, is absolutely integrity, right? You have to hold yourself accountable and responsible. You are responsible if your team does not do well. If you know something, oh, thank you. I just got a reminder that I'm talking too much and I need to hurry up. If you know something can't be finished on time, you say it, right? If you know something is not as efficient as it can be, you say it. You have to protect your team, right? You have to speak up. You have to put yourself in positions that are uncomfortable because you are in a position of privilege. You have all the answers. You get to generate schedules. You get to like generate how people do things. You set the pipeline, you set the cadence, you set the culture, you set the schedule. You have to kind of follow through. You can't just like you can't just say you're going to do something and not do it, right? Because you lose the respect of your team and you lose self-respect, right? And that's the worst. So you have to maintain your integrity and do what's right. So summary of soft skills, I love Pokemon, and I'm going to leave you with this slide. It has everything. Obviously, you'll get the slide at the very end. Thank you. Is there any questions?
Hey, yes. Hi. So
No, no worries.
sorry. Yeah, cool. Thank you so much, Darryl. I think people were commenting in the chat section. This is the most real the most real session they have ever come to. So I wanted to ask you, like, where did you get your anime pictures and gifs from? But no, but we are going to show some real questions from the audience. I think I want to show this one first from Christina. So Christina is asking a question about career transition, right? How can a junior product designer with previous QA experience move into producer, I guess, successfully?
Yeah, that's a good question. I could say that individuals with QA experience are oftentimes the best equipped to become project managers or producers because they know the game. They know all the bugs. They know how to break it. That means they know how to fix it, right? You just need to give them a chance. There's oftentimes we overlook the importance of QA, but QA is actually the most valuable individuals on the team. And I've seen that a QA person can successfully move into design, for instance, or production at previous jobs myself. So the answer is yes. And having product design experience helps. You can help shape the features of a game. You can also work on determining what the KPIs are and stuff like that. So definitely cool to have both skill sets for sure. And if you have more questions on that transition, feel free to ping me afterwards.
Great, thank you. Moving on to the next question. This one is also about career trajectory. It's about what would career advancement look like for a producer, from Esther.
I guess I need a little bit of clarification here when you say career advancement in the sense of like progression of where a producer goes, or what other careers can kind of transition into production. Esther, if you want to write that down on the right-hand side, I can better answer this question for you. So I'll give it a minute. If she's still here.
I think this one my understanding is about advancement, right? So from a producer, where can that lead to?
Sure, I can answer it from that perspective. And Esther, you can poke me after this if this isn't the answer you're looking for. But effectively, you start off as an associate producer. It's basically your junior position. Then it's producer, senior producer, and executive producer, which you've seen in like movies and whatnot. They're the ones that makes all the hot shot calls and kind of overall decision maker of the game. But there's also like some nuanced producer roles, like if you wanted to really focus in on narrative, you could be a narrative producer. So you could go on like casting calls and, you know, go into the booth to hear VO being recorded and stuff. There's also art producer who manages everything on the art side from pipeline to getting in the game. There's a technical producer, like if you're an engineering background, you can definitely go into that and, you know, speak engineering speak, which is great. And then there's like creative producer that works alongside creative directors. They pretty much help shape the way the game is being formed from a vision standpoint. I'm sure I'm missing some here, but there's a lot of different routes you can take from here.
Thank you. Next one is from Max. He's asking, how can a dev engineering team and the product design team mesh to have less obstacles through production and launch?
Try Agile, try Scrum, try making a pod where you take people from both sides and you throw them together and see what happens. You obviously need some facilitator, right? You need some project manager, production, or Scrum master to sort of make sure all the parts are still moving. But that's my best answer in the short amount of time I can give you. Poke me after if you have other questions, Max. But yeah, that's the first thing that came to mind.
Awesome. We'll take this one as well from Marshall. So his question is, what are your top 3 soft skills you utilize on a daily basis?
Got it. Integrity, empathy, communication. In that order. Maybe not. Empathy probably first.
Got it. I think in the interest of time, we'll take just one more. We'll take this one from Claudia. What methods have worked best for you when organizing notes between stakeholders, meetings, research, and more? It's a hard skill question, I guess.
Yeah. So obviously taking all the notes in a room, but one of the things that helps me is creating some sort of template. It's just a grid, right? You have your departments on the left, the notes that you took for each department in the second row, and then the last row is the action items for those specific departments. And putting that on a shared space like a Confluence or on a board on Monday, not the day, but the software Monday, or Dropbox, not Dropbox, what is that, Bootcamp or whatever, all Asana, there's so many, Trello, there's so many different things that you can use. But kind of divvy up and make sure you call to action people from specific departments that have action items, and following up with those people like, hey, Frank, you know, did you finish your presentation? No? Why not? And how can I help you? And because, you know, Jill's waiting for it so she could post it online and all this stuff, right? Like you kind of need to make sure you're on top of tracking what the actual action items are and that it's visible to everyone so they see why things are stuck.
Bonus question, which anime are you currently watching?
I don't have time to watch anime right now, unfortunately. As you can tell from my choices of animes, I fucking love Dragon Ball, Pokemon, Sailor Moon, any Studio Ghibli film. I rewatch a lot of stuff now that my son's kind of old enough. You know, we sort of watch Pokoroso, Nausicaa. We watch like other types of animes and stuff. But I heard Demon Slayer is really good. The last one I really got into is Attack on Titan. But my wife and I wish we had more time.
Yes, yeah, cool. Thank you so much, Darryl, for a super fun and real session. And thank you everyone for tuning in for Darryl's session. And I hope to see you in other sessions in BeMore. We still have a lot sessions upcoming. So yeah, I'll see you somewhere. Great, thank you so much.